Hello, welcome to the recap of part 10 of our live coding series, building a website in Python with Django and Wagtail CMS. This live stream series has been hosted on Codebuddies.org. It's a global community of code learners who help each other through conversations on Slack and peer-to-peer organized study groups and virtual hangouts. There are several channels on Codebuddies where you can get involved. Slack channel, a community forum. The platform itself is open source on GitHub. There's a Medium publication and a YouTube channel. So there's a lot of ways of getting involved. So you can teach and learn alongside other people. Technologies we're using in this series are Python language, the Django web framework, and Wagtail CMS. We're rebuilding a website for Western Friend organization. It's the official publication of Quakers in Pacific, North Pacific, and Intermountain yearly meetings, which are large groups in the Western United States. It's a magazine primarily printed and online that's been published since around 1929 as Friends Bulletin, and we've been building out this online publication site in Wagtail CMS. Today we kind of tackled a couple of tasks. One was a database migration where we renamed a field and preserved the data. We'll look at that code in a moment. And the other is to add pagination to this archive issues section on the magazine page. You have this paginator here. When you click a page or the previous or next button, it toggles this URL query string and tells you which page to go to, and it uses an anchor that's added to this heading tag, an ID, to jump the page down so the content is centered. It's a little bit kind of like a flash with that page jumping down, but that way since this is not kind of a reactive or single page app framework, it leaves the viewer kind of in the place they were when they clicked the button. So let's take a look at the code as briefly as possible. On the screen here, I have the model for the magazine index page. So there's only ever supposed to be one instance of this magazine index page model, and its responsibility is to display all of the issues, magazine issues, in two sections, recent and archive issues. So in order to split those out, recent and archive issues, we had to override the template context, which is basically the data that gets kind of provided for the template to render. Without going into too much detail, because we covered this in a previous recap, today we're working with these archive issues section down here. And essentially we haven't really changed that. We have this archive threshold that splits the recent and archive issues, and they should be mutually exclusive, so they use that same variable name. Then we get those as a query set, and we pass them into a paginator, which is something that's part of the Django core, and we tell it the query set to paginate and the number of items per page. Then I'm creating this variable to get the archive issued page query string from the GET request. And it's a dictionary of kind of key value, well, I guess strings that get passed into the query. So that can be arbitrary. You just define what you're looking for. Then we try to get the page that was requested. If something weird was passed in, like a non-integer, it's just going to give us the first page. So if somehow somebody's hacking the URL and they're putting in some junk, it'll just still render something down here. If the page is not available, like if they're asking for a page that's out of range, it'll just render the last page. These came straight out of the Django documentation, so we left those in there. Finally, this context dictionary is what gets passed into this whole template to render. We just put that paginated archive issues, paginator instance into this context variable and return it to the template. So here in the template, we'll look down here a little bit in the archive issues section where we had put that anchor earlier to jump down. We have a row that shows these issues and iterates over them and displays them in this card template. Below that, we've added a small paginator. We gave it a little bit of a margin left to align it, align it with these cards, and margin bottom to get it off the bottom of the page, because it was just down there and it would get would kind of get hidden behind things in the URL tooltip or whatever. So that's those margins. So what we do, this came straight from the Django documentation in a recipe on Stack Overflow, is we just look at that archive issues paginator and see if it has a previous page. If it does, it's going to render this button. This is just a straight bootstrap button, outline small to not overpower the text there. I don't want to focus too much on the aesthetics. This page and website is supposed to be very minimal, and we'll focus more on the aesthetics later. So when you construct the URL, you just say, essentially we're adding that query string in there, setting it to the value of the previous page, and adding this anchor tag so it jumps down. That's it. The other text here just shows you what page you're on of how many pages there are, paginator number of pages. So that keeps people oriented to where they are in the paginated content. Finally, if it has a next, these are conditionally displayed, it's going to have that same query string with the next page number instead of previous. Same anchor, same button styles, just different words. So pretty conventional, comes straight out of Django core. Didn't have to do any really special tricks to get it to work with Wagtail, since Wagtail is basically just extending Django. I'm not sure if this get context is Wagtail specific. Yeah, it looks like at least it comes out of the page instance. But in any case, let's move on to the other significant change that we made today. This was making a database migration that renames a field or column in your database without losing the data that's already been added. So in the home page and magazine, while we're here, on the magazine index page we have this intro text that shows up here and allows you to edit it through a rich text editor. When you click edit this page, the intro text shows there and you can change it. Similarly, on the home page, there is some text here that's editable when you go to the edit this page. And previously that was called body text, and that was kind of a relic. I had originally built the first parts of this site by following the Wagtail Getting Started guide, in which you build a blog, and I just kind of changed certain parts of it to be more magazine oriented. In any case, for consistency, I also wanted to call this intro instead of body. So we wrote a migration. Here's the model. In order to do this, you have to be careful. It's very simple, but you just got to make sure you do pay attention. So you go to your model, and you essentially rename the field to whatever. It went from body to intro. And then if you display it in any panels, be sure to rename it there. I had a small error when I forgot to rename it. It still said body here, and my migration wouldn't run. Then, let's see if I can get this up in the terminal. Here we go. Yeah, there it is. You run the command python manage.py make migrations, so we're familiar with that, but you add this flag empty. It creates an empty migration and tell it for what app you're running it on. So we're running in the home app because we want to change the home page model, which is part of that. So in the migrations folder, it created a migration with just a kind of a name with I said auto and then the date timestamp. You can rename that, there's no problem there. So I renamed it just to describe what it's trying to do, homepage intro. And all you have to do, all of this is pre-generated, and you just add an operation. So from migrations, there's a rename field method. You tell it the model name, which is our homepage model, the field's previous name, and the name you want it to go to. And then you just run your migrations. Python, manage py, migrate. At that point, we double checked and all the content was preserved. There was only one instance, but the other thing I had to do was remember to edit my template where I was displaying the page body in the template. I was scratching my head for just a brief moment as to why it wasn't showing up. So you just have to be detail oriented and make sure you follow through in all the places when you're running these migrations. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, well that was our progress we made today. And once again, this has been a Codebuddies sort of hangout event, live coding some Python, Django, and Wagtail. And really hope to see you around the Codebuddies community. And feel free to jump into any of these hangouts and code along or point out mistakes I'm making or make suggestions on how I can improve my code, because we're all teachers and learners in this community. All right, well have a great day.